programming is brought to you by Local Video Marketing in association with CoachChic.com.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hockey Nutrition with Kim. I'm Kim Lukhard, Hockey Mom RD, and if you've ever wondered How in the world can you make a high protein smoothie for your youth ice hockey player without using protein powder? I'm going to show you how today. You want to start with a liquid. It could be cow's milk, almond milk, coconut milk, soy milk, or oat milk. Now these milks will vary in protein content, ranging from 8 grams for cow's milk down to 1 gram for coconut or almond milk. This is going to depend on your skater's choice and whether or not they are vegetarian or perhaps lactose intolerant. Then add some fruit. Bananas, strawberries, and blueberries top the list for the majority of my youth ice hockey players. Fruits don't contain a lot of protein, but they do add wonderful nutrients for your skater's growing body, like potassium, vitamin A, vitamin C, folate, and dietary fiber. Next, you want to add some healthy fat. That's going to give a punch with some calories that are much needed for the youth ice hockey player. Avocados, peanut butter, almond butter, sun butter, chia seeds, and flax seeds are all great to add. Now noting, don't add any that your skater is allergic to. Avocados will provide 2.9 grams of protein for 1 cup of sliced. Peanut butter packs a punch with 8 grams of protein in 2 tablespoons. Almond butter, 6.8 grams of protein in 2 tablespoons. And sun butter, 5.6 grams of protein in 2 tablespoons. If you don't know what sun butter is, that's made from sunflower seeds. Chia seeds are 4.7 grams in 1 tablespoon. And in 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds, you get 1.8 grams. So any one of these would be a great addition, or you could add several. I personally like to add peanut butter and flax seeds or almond butter and flax seeds to my smoothies. Vegetables can be kale and spinach. Now, surprisingly, these are very bland and add quite a wonderful bunch of nutrients. Potassium, calcium, manganese, copper, vitamins A, K, and B6 in kale, and spinach coming in again with potassium, magnesium, folate, and calcium. Now, the minerals highlighted in green are your skater's electrolytes. Those are the part of the electrolytes in the human body. So when we all sweat, we're losing our electrolytes. They're body salts. So eating kale and spinach and adding them to the smoothies will help to add back what is lost, or at least a portion of what is lost in sweat. Now here's a recipe example. It's kind of similar to the one I make every day, and I'll give you a disclaimer. When you do add kale and spinach, it's going to change the color. It's not going to be that like tan color. It's going to be a little bit more greenish. But 1 cup of milk, a banana. I do use a 1/4 cup of peanut butter, a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, and then a mix of kale and spinach. And if you measure this out, you can get close to 27 grams of protein in a smoothie without having to use protein powder. Now, if you choose to use protein powder, that's perfectly okay. But I wanted to do a video for you showing you how you could get a high protein smoothie without using protein powder. To learn more about youth ice hockey nutrition, visit www.hockeymomrd.com. Happy skating till next time.
Make no mistake about it, our sport is all about motion. And I've found that I can unbelievably improve a player's skating, their rhythm, their power, and their efficiency with these exclusive off-ice methods. I can also help older players with their explosive strength, toughness, and conditioning.
You hear from me a lot about strength training on your feet. Doing as much of your strength training as you can in a standing position. Why is that? Well, I want to share with you 10 reasons why I think you want to consider making sure that strength training on your feet is done a majority of the time, if not all the time, in your strength training program. So why do we want to train on our feet, specifically strength train on our feet? Well, number one, we want to be more athletic. Guys, athletes perform in standing. They perform their activity in standing. As a result of that, I want to be athletic, so therefore, I want to go ahead and make sure I perform majority of my strength training on my feet so I can stay athletic. Number two, I want to go ahead and make sure that I keep my balance. I know that balance as I age will start to decrease. I want to make sure that I keep it as high of a functioning level as possible. I want to also make sure that my balance is best on my feet. So as a result of that, I'm going to strength train on my feet to improve and maintain a high level of balance. My trunk muscles and hip muscles take a majority of their feedback from the floor. Matter of fact, they're driven from the impact of the floor. As a result of that, I want to make sure that my trunk and my hips are always being effectively and consistently activated from the ground up. So as a result of that, I'm going to strength train on my feet as much as possible to keep my hips and my trunk performing at a high level. My ankles, knees, hips, and low back joints need to be resilient. And the best way for them to build resiliency is from the ground. They need to feel the impact of the ground so that they can go ahead and get stronger and be able to handle that force more consistently and for longer periods of time. So as a result of that, I don't want to just strengthen the primary muscles that I'm training. I want to make sure that my ankles, knees, hips, and low back are being influenced as much as possible during my strength training program. As a result of that, I'm going to go ahead and strength train on my feet as much as possible. Mobility and stability are keys to my body as I age. The best way for me to improve both mobility and stability at the same time is to be on my feet, especially using split stances and large amplitude movements. That's going to allow me to challenge my mobility, but it's also, in turn, going to require me to be more stable, much more stable than sitting on a bench or lying on my back or sitting on my butt. I don't want to be in those positions because they're not going to challenge my mobility and stability. Matter of fact, they're probably going to take away from my mobility and stability. So as a result of that, I want optimal stability and optimal mobility for a long time. Best way to go ahead and do that is strength train on my feet. Agility and coordination. These are things that a lot of people don't think about when they're strength training. But in reality, you want your agility and your strength training to coincide together. Matter of fact, strength training should improve your agility. And why do you want more agility? Because that's going to allow you to do a lot more things outside the home, outside the gym. You want to be able to make sure your fitness is working for you. And agility is one of those things that I want to make sure my strength training program is feeding and enhancing. Best way to do that? Strength train on my feet to help improve and maintain a high level of agility. Strength training on my feet, especially with resistance bands, provides me so many exercise options and variations. Much more than just having to be in a sitting position or on a machine or using another type of tool where I have to sit. I want to go ahead and have as many exercise options as possible. Being in a standing position, especially with resistance bands, provides me unlimited exercise options. Fact of the matter is, we are designed to function from the ground up. Again, I go back to talking about how we initially developed. We developed our ability to function from the ground up. First, we learned how to roll, then we learned how to stand on all, or function on all fours. Then we learned how to go ahead and prop up onto our knees. Then we learned to crawl before we then learned to go ahead and stand up, before we learned to go ahead and walk. See, everything happened from the ground up. So there's a reason why we should be continuing to reinforce that concept of training from the ground up, because it's how we originally were developed. Interesting enough, I think as we age, we want to go ahead and work on that even more, because we know that there are certain things functionally we're going to lose as we age. And I want to go ahead and always be strong from the ground up. As a result, I'm going to strength train on my feet a lot more than going in any other position. Fact of the matter is, guys, we were designed with walking and running. You've heard me say that before. So in order for me to maintain a high level of walking performance, high level of running performance, strength training on my feet makes sense, because that's how I'm going to walk and that's how I'm going to run. So I'm going to go ahead and position myself in standing and strength train my body, upper body, lower body, because ultimately it's going to feed into enhancing my walking and running capabilities. Last and final reason to go ahead and strength train on your feet, guys, falls are the #1 way our elderly population is getting injured. And those falls are not occurring from a sitting position or a lying down position. They're occurring from a standing position, which means that we have to be continually reinforcing our balance, our stability, our control, everything it takes to keep us over top of our center of gravity while on our feet. I'm going to strength train on my feet as much as possible, because I ultimately feel that's the best way to help me prevent falls as I get older. There you go, guys. 10 reasons why strength training on your feet is a much more effective way to train versus sitting on a bench, sitting on a machine, lying on your back. Now, all of those have benefits. I get that. But ultimately, when you look at your strength training program, make sure a majority of it is being done on your feet.
Are you that parent? My name is Shawnee Harlee, and my business is Winning Matters. I'm a 2-time Olympian and mental toughness coach, and I get to listen. That's a good word. I get to listen to athletes all the time while I'm coaching them. It is so interesting what they tell me, especially the athletes of that parent, what they tell me. So I'm going to share with you what they tell me, because I'm like, well, have you ever told your parent that? They're like, no, I wouldn't tell my parent that. And I'm like, okay, maybe you should. I don't even think I need to define what that parent is. We all know what that looks like. We sure know what it sounds like. And this is what athletes say. My parents are so embarrassing. That's one thing they say. The other thing they say is, why are they coaching me from the stands? It's so confusing. I'm supposed to be listening to my coach, but my parents are up in the stands yelling at me. Interesting. Here's the other thing that they tell me. Coach Shawnee, if I can, I try to get a ride home with someone else. I'm like, why? Why trying to get a ride home with someone else? Because I can't escape. As soon as I get in the car, I have to sit and listen to a lecture for the entire ride home. Interesting. So I say to them, well, what's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with your parents yelling? Why is that bad? Why does that bother you? They say, number one, I'm worried that my coach is going to get mad at me because my parent is yelling. They're yelling at the refs. They're yelling at other parents. They're yelling at the opponents. And I'm afraid that I'm going to get in trouble because they're the ones doing the yelling. As I mentioned before, they also say it's confusing. So often they're telling me, shoot it. And I know that isn't what my coach wants me to do. So who am I supposed to please? My parent or my coach? The other thing they say to me is, it makes me want to shut them out. It makes me not want to engage. I actually want to tell them, stop coming to my games. They're like, Shawnee, I don't even want them to come and watch me anymore. It's so stressful. Okay, what do you want them to say? What do you want them to do so they can stop being that parent? Here's what they tell me. I don't want them to do anything. Can't they just sit there and drink their coffee, check their phone, talk to the people beside them? Why do they have to comment on every single play? Okay. I said, what else would you like them to say? They're like, well, I don't want them to say anything when I'm playing. I want them to cheer. I want them to cheer for good plays, cheer for me, cheer for opponents, cheer for my teammates, be good sports when they're sitting there. Okay. So what do you want them to say in the car ride home? How would you engage in the car ride home? What would they need to say to engage you? They're like, well, first of all, I think they should ask me if I even want to have a conversation. Maybe I don't want to have a conversation yet. And then the very first thing I want them to do, I want them to ask me what I think about the game instead of lecturing me on what they think.
Notice how these less experienced skaters wrestle with their balance. As a matter of fact, this kind of out-of-sync movement, with the arms and legs going every which way, really robs a player of the energy he or she will need when it's time to go all out. So, for a better idea of how this movement should actually be done, a body always seeks to balance itself in any movement. Consequently, because a skater in full stride is thrusting primarily towards the outside, his or her arms must move along the same plane, or side to side, in equal but opposite movements. Notice that kind of balancing and rhythm apparent here. And in contrast to the beginner sample, it should be obvious that this guy is able to conserve energy while cruising at a pretty good pace.
This has been a local video marketing production. We hope you've enjoyed this, and that you've picked up a number of great hockey tips. Please do tell some friends about these shows, and let the contributing coaches know how much you appreciate them.